Hi, Adriana. Good morning.
Hi, Thomas.
Thanks, and hi everyone also in the call. Thanks for joining. Maybe Ada, you can introduce yourself first.
Sure. I'm a SAP veteran. I started in 2007 in SAP HR. And after years and years of SAP implementation, 3 years ago, I decided to go and help companies become more proficient in how they do projects. And I joined ADB Safegate as business technology manager. I'm handling all the business applications of the group, managing contracts, and also leading projects successfully. I am the bridge between the business needs and IT, translating what one needs versus what can be delivered. And here I will be sharing my experience as project manager for our Concur integration story.
Yeah, thanks. And my name is Thomas. I work for Flexo as a Concur consultant. So let's start. I will share my screen. And if all is well, you should see the nice airplane now. So indeed, welcome everyone to our webinar on managing expenses with SAP Concur at ADB Safegate. So thanks, Ada, again for coming here and explain a bit the story of ADB Safegate and their Concur implementation, let's say. But first of all, I will start with a short introduction on SAP Concur as an expense tool, let's say. It will be around 10 minutes. Next up, Ada, it's your story or ADB Safegate's story on Concur. And then in the last remaining time, 10 minutes, we can move on to any questions asked in the chat. So on the people on the call, feel free to ask any questions, put them in the chat, and we will go through them at the end of this webinar.
The questions, you can ask them through the presentation so that you don't forget them, put them there, and we are going to read them all at the end.
Yes. All right, so an introduction to SAP Concur. SAP Concur is an intuitive and integrated business travel, invoice, and expense management tool. It consists out of three main modules. The travel module is the online booking tool, so where you as an end user, and then at ADB you're also using that. As an end user, you can book flights, book hotels, reserve cars for any business-related trip. Next to that, we have the expense module, which is basically the expensing solution where you can claim your expenses during your business trip. You can use your phone, scan your receipts, put them in an expense report, submit them to your manager, and so on and so forth. And in the end, you'll be reimbursed for those specific expense reports. Next to that, there's also an invoice module where invoices can also be automated into the system, can be read, but that's not the goal of today's call. We will not go into much detail here. On top of that, there's the integration services in green. So basically, of course, for travel and expense, you need employees in the system. So that's our HR integration that we have. Can be from different systems, so not only SAP systems, but also other systems, other HR systems. Plus also on the other side of the integration, and Ada will talk a bit about it as well during her part, is the finance integration, where we can integrate, same story, of course, natively from and to SAP ERP systems, but also any other ERP or finance systems can be integrated with SAP Concur. And next to that, we can also connect to third-party systems, like, for example, Uber integration directly into the system. So let's dive a bit more into detail of the key capabilities of SAP Concur. As mentioned, it's mobile, of course. There's a dedicated SAP Concur app both on Android and iOS, which you can use, and you see it on the right-hand side of your screen as well, which you can use to scan your receipts, to put in your expenses, claim your reports, and so on and so forth. It's really up to 2024 standards, I would say. It's rather user-friendly and just works nicely. The system itself is scalable and modular, meaning if you're a company of 100 people or a company of 1,400 people like ADB, and you're still growing, the system will grow with you. It doesn't matter if you're small, medium, or big, let's say, the system will just follow you. You can add in additional countries, add in additional people. That's all really foreseen within Concur as a solution, as an expense solution. As mentioned, it's also integrated. I will not dive into much detail anymore. And again, Ada will also explain a bit on the integration that they have at ADB. There's possibilities as well to guide your end user in the system. There's tooltips, there's overlays with messages for new users, how to use the system. These things all exist as well in the solution. Additional modules can be, or additional functionalities can be budget follow-up, where you can easily follow, for example, per project, you can follow the budget, the pending budget, the spent budget. Also, for example, pre-approval or Concur request is part of, or can be part of your solution. And next to that, there's also a very good credit card integration. So many banks can be integrated into the Concur solution, which in the end will help you as a customer to reconcile your credit card data. Obviously, digitalization is key as well within Concur. There's possibilities to directly integrate e-receipts using the full mobile application, these kind of things. That's all. AI is also foreseen within the tool. So that's all part of the package, let's say. And the end goal is capturing invisible spend for end users, but typically, of course, also for management from a reporting point of view as well. Now, how do we do a Concur project? What's our project approach at Flexo? Well, there's two typical ways to do a project. There's either on the left-hand side here, a custom project, where we have a lot of customizations. And these kind of projects will take more time, but typically, and then we're looking at the right-hand side of the screen, the second pyramid, is where we actually use the Flexo best practices. We use our knowledge, because we were a Concur partner since the very beginning. We use that knowledge. We have built a kind of an accelerator that can be used to kind of have our customers serve on the best practice wave, where your time to value will be decreased. If you're talking about time, we have included two example plannings here. So this, for example, here is just a single wave planning, and single wave means one country up to 4 or 5 countries, I would say. That is something that we can typically achieve within 12 weeks or 3 months. But obviously, again, this is an example planning. It can be shorter time frame if you as an end user or end customer demands this from us, and we can kind of staff up, let's say, add additional staff or more hours on it. But this is a best practice planning. We see that, if you shrink the timing, then of course you as a company, your employees need to be able to follow as well, because they have their day-to-day task, and getting an additional project on their plate with a very short time frame that is not achievable is also not the best way to go forward. And same in the other direction, we can of course stretch plannings as well. Again, this is just a typical best practice planning. Maybe you recognize these phases already from other projects that you've done, but typically we have those 4 or 5 phases. Preparation phase to get everything signed and so on and planned, and then more in detail, let's say, or the next step is the explore phase. In light orange or in yellow is where the system will be spun up. The team from our end will be prepared. The team from your end will be prepared. We put our noses in the same direction, let's say, and we plan a kickoff. Kickoff involves all stakeholders. I think we did it as well at the start of ADB's project, where also the sponsor is in, the PM, of course, key users or admin users, these kind of people. We give a demo of the system. We present them the planning. We give them the scope of the project so that everyone knows, okay, this is about to start. Let's actually start. And then we move into the dark orange in the realization phase, where we have design sessions together with the customer. We have workshops where we talk about, okay, this is the best practice that we have, but you as a customer, do you want to adhere to that best practice, or do you want to add something or change something? That is, of course, a possibility as well. Then we will start with, or we actually, because of that design, that will be signed off. And then we start configuring this design in the Concur system specifically for you. Plus, also, we will start with helping you with the integration from and to your HR and finance or ERP systems. After that, but actually already during configuration, we start the testing, but really an end-to-end testing with you, the project team, plus then later on a UAT will be done during the testing and validation phase. And then after that, at the end of UAT, again, we have like a sign-off where you say, okay, UAT was successful, all the issues were solved, or we have a plan. What you've configured is indeed what we wanted during the design. This is okay. And then we move into the last phase, of course, the deployment and hypercare phase, where we might have a cutover, the actual go live then, and then a couple of weeks of hypercare where we, Flexo, as an implementation partner, stay in close contact with you to kind of monitor all the incoming expenses and any questions or issues that might still arise at that point. So that's an example of a single wave planning. Single wave also means that there's more waves possible as well. And this is an example from a different customer. Again, example planning, here you already see they have multiple, more than 5, as I mentioned before, countries per wave, which is feasible, but again, depends if you as a customer can follow this more speedy timeline, let's say, which was the case for this customer, and there we implemented 32 countries across the globe, as you see on this map. Good. Let's move to your story. But first of all, you provided a nice little short movie, which I will initiate. All right, one time is enough. Okay, Ada, over to you.
Thank you, Thomas.
Tell us about your Concur story.
Okay. ADB Safegate is founded in 1920, and we grown for a small family-sized company via mergers and acquisition to a world leader in the market. We have over 1,400 employees, 2,700 airports in more than 175 countries. So our engineers need to travel a lot. And if we don't have a centralized expense management system, if we don't have control and audit in place, things can go sideways. And we decided around 2017 that we needed a system to manage all this. And we went for Concur. We chose some Concur because we have a full travel to pay process, because we have additional modules available that we bought whenever we got budget approved. I think you have the same story with budget approvals. And we also had it scalable. We grew and we deployed more and more countries. Sometime in the past, it was decided that we are not going to go for the US system that was in place since 2016-17, and we are going to deploy a system in the rest of the world for the new acquisitions. And what have we accomplished? We accomplished a big complexity in our landscape. We are a SAP first company. We have plenty of SAP products that we deploy. Our aim is to do a minimal viable product for something if we don't have the full budget, and then we start growing. For Concur, well, we ended up by having two systems, one for America, and one for the rest of the world. Indeed, we increased the governance, we increased the control, but we ended up with users having two sets of accesses. We have employees in US with managers in rest of the world. I have employees in rest of the world with managers in US. Poor managers needed to remember two sets of logons, two URLs because the systems were different. They didn't remember to get into one of the systems to approve the travel. The ticket was not issued. The engineers could not travel. A lot of frustration, a lot of confusion. Why do we need to have two systems that do the same thing?
So you had two Concur systems because of mergers and acquisitions, kind of living next to each other.
Strategic decisions that were taken without really thinking about the end user impact.
Yeah.
And once we pay attention to the end user and we pay attention to the IT complexity, and in the end we pay attention to the budget because we had two Concur contracts, we decided the best thing would be to merge into one single system. And for us, we chose the European data center to move everybody into the European data center, also because of GDPR reasons. We couldn't move Europe into the US data center.
Makes sense.
We decided that we are going to keep the two different processes between US and rest of the world. So we are not going to impact the end user, the regional process, but we are going to improve the administration of the system by having all the employees use the same tool to make their travel booking and expenses. We've taken that decision because our interest was not to shake anything for the end user. Their experience was good with Concur. We wanted just to improve the admin work. We wanted to take effort from the teams that were doing the administration because we don't have dedicated admins for Concur. They are doing this on top of their other job. The finance process, we wanted to use automatic integration for those. We also wanted to improve security from access perspective to be able to deploy single sign-on. And we wanted to have a positive, good experience about Concur when our engineers travel to the 2,700 airports that we need to serve.
Yeah. Okay, and if you talk a bit more indeed about the integration after that optimization, how did your landscape look like?
We are now using HR integration, meaning that when an employee is hired, he gets automatically created in Concur without anybody pushing buttons. When the employee moves from one department to another and they get a new cost center, this automatically changes without anybody's intervention. When the manager changes, the approver is modified automatically. And when an employee leaves the company, his account is also terminated in SuccessFactors and in Concur without anybody doing additional steps. We also integrated with ERP systems because we wanted to have bidirectional connection. In finance, we create cost centers all the time. Well, we didn't want somebody to send emails and somebody else to key in the cost center into the Concur system. We send financial bookings to the ERP systems, also easing the life of the finance team, who are not just doing the Concur bookings as their job. What do we have else? We have single sign-on, active direct Azure integration. We decided to go this way because we didn't want to have another case where we find our employees' passwords on the dark web. We wanted to be able to avoid fraud attempts when passwords of terminated employees got compromised.
Okay, that's wow. So the passwords of your users were found somewhere on
the dark web, yeah.
Okay.
And they were used not by the terminated employee. We have nothing, but there was an attempt to try to use passwords that were not really of the person who made the request.
So single sign-on for the win then. Yes. All right. And how did that? What was the result of that optimization you did in Concur then?
Now all our employees are mastered in SuccessFactors. This is our system of records for employee data. And all the data is interfaced for the internal employees to Concur. We simplified a lot the logon experience. We have one user account for approvals with single sign-on. It's very quick for them to approve a travel or to approve an expense. And what have we accomplished in practice? Even for me, I submit an expense on Tuesday. It goes via it is automatically reviewed, audited by the Concur audit services within 24 hours, guaranteed by contract. Manager approves the second day. If it hits the payment runs, it gets into my bank account on Friday. So from Tuesday submitting to Friday in my bank account, this is something that we couldn't have dreamed a few years back.
Yeah, nice. Quick integration.
What else? I think now the admins are focusing more on educating end users instead of fixing passwords and sending reminders. Where is the link and what should you press in order to get to the other account?
Yeah. So indeed, to remember, just purchase one Concur system and no two Concur systems to avoid indeed
that would be my recommendation. Yeah. If you care about budget, if you care about user experience, don't choose two systems. And if you have one, just pull everybody into the same system in case of mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah. Okay. And how did you measure the success of this project, of this optimization project you did?
Very important for us. The project went live actually ahead of time and on budget.
Yeah, I remember.
And this happened because we had everybody heavily involved. We had global teams in Europe and in Americas. Together with you, Thomas, and your team, we really pushed hard and we really looked forward 3 or 4 steps ahead to see whatever we can do faster. Because it was important for us to improve the user experience as soon as possible. And what was another measure of success was the seamless transition for US users. We didn't want to modify their way of working. This is why we kept their local travel and expense process. We wanted for them to have the same experience as before, only for IT admins to be better. We harmonized the global administration process, and basically now we are removing in average 15 emails between 3 teams, 30 minutes setup of accounts in various systems. For finance, again, we avoid email exchanges back and forth, correction of data. People are always correcting things in every system, and that led before to a lot of junk email. We increase the process efficiency. Yes, we have some countries which have company credit cards, and those we don't really care if they are in and they get repaid monthly. But for people like me that we don't have a company card, the fact that I pay now a certain amount and in 4 days that is back in my bank account, it eliminates a lot of stress, especially if you need to travel a lot. We offer the same IT level of support for the integrations that are managed now by my team, and we also simplified our IT architecture, removing one of the systems that we needed to care about.
Yeah.
For us, it was a big success.
Yeah, great indeed. Maybe some overall lessons learned and tips.
Okay, so the most important thing for me was the fact that I had business partner, a strategic partner in Flexo in you, because you came to me and you said, Adriana, this is the best practice. and I'm not implementing Concur every day. I need to go to the experts who can advise me, and I'm paying the good people, the good experts, to teach me how I need to make my business successful. We didn't have we had in Flexo more than just a software seller. We had somebody who could explain us the right way to go, and this is why this is one of the main reason why we were successful.
You challenged you as well?
Yes, you challenge, but that's the purpose. If you do whatever I ask, then I will come back to say, why didn't you challenge me? Because you should be better. You are implementing Concur every single day and not only once like me. We always had the go live in mind, and we always try to do a few steps ahead. We kept an active risk management. We also had the sponsor involved, and we reached out to our sponsor whenever we saw things could get out of control. We were always proactive, and he responded just as much. The business owners were very closely involved, and they were present in every weekly call for the work.
Yeah, I remember.
We felt really comfortable with Thomas in driving this, and we never thought that we could go wrong.
Thanks. Yeah, maybe what are you using from Concur? Which modules and functionalities are you using at ADB?
Okay, so as we are a long customer from 2016, 17. We gradually increased our service portfolio because our approach is to maximize what we pay for. And while we use the Concur and the travel expense, we are also scanning our expenses with our phone via Expensit. This feature translates automatically, identifies automatically the category of the expense, puts automatically the amount. It eases the job of those who need to submit expenses every week when they are traveling. We have the audit service that guarantees that our expenses are verified according to our policies, and the policies differ by country and by legal entity. Within 24 hours. This allows us that we have that process where I submit my expense on Tuesday and on Fridays on my bank account. We also took tax assurance and tax historic claims. Why? We are a small company. We serve so many airports in so many countries, but we are not experts in the tax legislation of every country. I don't know what I can deduct in France versus what I can deduct when I travel to Portugal. And we don't want to ask our finance team nor our employees to know that. It's not their purpose. It's not their job. So we bought these services in order to guarantee that we maximize our tax return from the government. We have 24 countries deployed, on average of 750 expense reports. Just as a note, in Concur, expense report doesn't mean expense bill. You can put multiple expense bills on an expense report, and in our contract we have a fee by expense report. So this is another optimization activity that we are doing now. We are trying to identify which are the employees that don't really submit 1, 2, 3 expense reports per month, but submit much more, meaning that we need to pay much more. Considering our quick payment cycle, it doesn't make sense to have 8 expense reports per month, especially as you can split the expense by cost centers or by other attributes that you can configure in the system.
Okay. What's next?
Next, Concur Detect with artificial intelligence. Our CFO is very strict on compliance and control, and I guess your CFOs also really like the sound of it. So now we are making a business case to be able to implement Concur Detect on top of the audit services, because we believe it would bring advantage to the company to identify patterns of issues, patterns of misuse. Let's say we don't really start with the premise that, with the assumption that somebody is trying to fraud us. But in case somebody needs more education and a better guidance on how to use the tool, on how to stick to the policies, we are going to try to get this implemented in the next months.
Great to hear. All right, thanks a lot for the full explanation and then the full story. The project itself was also fun. Of course, hard work, but indeed also I think we had fun from time to time. So thanks a lot for that, and thanks for presenting this as well to us and to the audience.
Thank you very much for doing it so well, because otherwise I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, well, indeed. Okay, and that brings us to the last topic of today, which is the Q&A. For the Q&A, normally I've stopped sharing now my screen, and then I will see the questions on screen. So there is one question here. Which ERP systems are you integrating to? So which integrations do you have from an ERP point of view?
We integrate with SAP S/4HANA Private Cloud Edition. Before we integrated with S/4HANA Public Cloud Edition, but we moved to private, so we shifted the integration to. We integrate with ECC on-premise, SAP, and we also integrate with SAP Business One.
Okay, so we have
another product of SAP. So with 3 SAP products.
Perfect. Yeah. So we have 3 indeed different integrations, which in Concur is perfectly feasible. Indeed, as mentioned, we have SAP integrations, but we also can integrate to any other system through APIs or flat files, basically. All right. I don't see any additional questions at this point. So if you still have questions, feel free to reach out to us, to Flexo. And then I would say thank you very much, Adriana, once more. And there's a question popped up. There's a question here. How is SAP SuccessFactors feeding SAP Concur for authorizing approval expense report, 2-level approvals depending situation? Yeah, so I think for ADB Safegate, maybe on the a bit more technical side, there's indeed SuccessFactors integration to SAP Concur. This is done through Integration Center in SuccessFactors and flat file integration on a daily basis. Your approval workflow, do you know by heart how it looked like? Do you have multiple steps?
We have a 2-level approval based on the amounts of the expense. So this can be configured. And depending on the cost center, we agreed that we are going to have different approvers for different amount limits.
Yeah, perfect. So I hope that answers that question. Thanks for the question, indeed.
So basically, we have the normal approval that comes from SuccessFactors, but on top in Concur, you can add 2nd-level approvals depending on different logics that you are going to design during the project implementation. Yeah.
And this is also integratable data. So I think that was indeed also the question. If that second approver can be integrated, then yes, that is something that we can integrate.
But for us, we decided not to. So for us, we decided that the 2nd level is manually administered in the Concur system.
So there's room for improvement.
Let's see. We will.
Okay, great. That's it. Thanks for attending, everyone, and hope to hear from you soon. All right.